Our third reader of the evening is Christine Wu, who is a Chinese-Canadian poet living in Kjipuktuk, otherwise known as Halifax, Nova Scotia. She's the recent winner of the 2023 RBC Pen New Voices Award, and she was one of 3 finalists for the 2022 RBC Bronwen Wallace Award for Emerging Writers. We're also very excited around here because Christine is just about to come on board as our new reviews editor. So thank you and welcome, Christine.
Thanks, Sue. Yes, I am just wanted to acknowledge that I am coming from Mi'kma'ki, the unsurrendered, unceded, and unconquered territory in Mi'kma'ki, and which just makes me think about the current issue in Palestine. And if you're interested or not aware yet, there are a couple of petitions circling that you can sign to call for the ceasefire in Palestine. I have 3 poems in this issue of the Fiddlehead. They're all part of my new project where I am reimagining some Bible stories, and then time allowing, I might read a 4th poem. So this first poem is called Adam and Eve Meet with Divorce Attorneys. Adam wants his rib back, says it was never meant to be a joint asset, but he'll settle for the sports car, says it's more than a fair trade. Eve counters by claiming she never asked for it in the first place. She only happened because Adam got bored of playing with himself and the label maker God gave him for his birthday. They consider splitting up the children. It seemed to work in the Parent Trap until Lindsay Lohan found a copy of herself at camp. Perhaps they can agree to stay away from camps of all sorts. They're mostly indoor people now, anyway. The kids will just have to cope by watching TV all summer like everyone else. Adam is partial to Cain, vibes with him best, swears Cain takes after his old man. Eve can have Abel in all the fruit baskets. Adam's still bitter about the incident that got them kicked out of the original gated community. When asked about the breakdown of their marriage, Eve mutters, snitches get stitches, says they only hooked up because there was no one better around. This next poem is called Locating Jezebel, and there is a small epigraph from 2 Kings. So the epigraph reads, Jezebel's body will be like dung on the ground at the plot of Jezreel, so that no one will be able to say, this is Jezebel. 2 Kings 9:37. Find her shopping at Sephora, accused of vanity for applying eyeshadow minutes before being fed to the dogs after committing her first fatal offense, taunting Elijah's fragile male ego. Find her on TMZ on page 6, anywhere men can hold her down. Butterfly pin straight through the thorax, ready to be mounted under glass. Find her fucked by men who christen themselves the Holy Trinity, lover, priest, executioner. Find her thrown to her death, trampled underfoot. The stories will tell you there was nothing left, just her skull, her feet, her hands. But it's not true. Find her eternally preserved for the ultimate sin, daring to be a woman who believed in the wrong God, who chose herself. Find her in the thesaurus as another word for prostitute. Find her in the dictionary, a wicked shameless woman. Her identity ascribed post-mortem, redefined legacy captured between the pages of the OED. And I apologize, I should have mentioned that that poem and this next poem has some mentions of sexual violence. This next poem is called Sister Wives, 1700 BC, and it also has an epigraph that goes, "Finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years' work." Genesis 29:27. Rachel Have I Loved is a pretty insensitive episode title, if you ask me. Everybody already knew Rachel was endgame. 14 years of work to marry one's love sounds romantic, unless you think about the wedding night, how Jacob couldn't even tell he was fucking the wrong woman. Never mind the fact father never asked what we wanted, just negotiated for himself a 2-for-1 deal on his daughters. Don't get me started on the tabloids about my weary eyes. You'd be tired too if you were known as the ugly one. How many seasons can we drag this on for? I don't hate her, you know. You'd think a man with multiple wives would have more love to give. It might be a surprise to hear the first 7 years were the worst. The anticipation, the lies, the many loads of laundry I washed alone. Is it still considered cheating when your husband sneaks off with his fiancée? I suppose it runs in the family. Jacob cheated Esau out of his birthright, and our father cheated Jacob into 7 years, extra years of work. We were just collateral. And this last poem is a little bit more personal. It's called Sourdough, if I can just bring it up here. Sourdough. While waiting for the proof, I drink wine and think about the years I spent visiting churches. How hard it was to keep track of the rules for communion, which tables were open or closed. If I needed some sort of reservation, a signed contract, or a certain type of baptism, whether I had returned to an acceptable state of grace since my last mortal sin, what my last mortal sin was, what kind of transformation I believed the bread and wine underwent, whether it was wine or blood or Welch's grape juice served in tiny plastic cups alongside perfect cubes of white bread. I want to make a joke about how, of course, Jesus's body is white in the Western Church, how some of these churches abstain from wine entirely in order to be holier than Jesus himself. How Jesus himself knew how much wine to conjure up for a good party. But I don't. Not with the same tongue that lapped up the blood and swallowed the flesh without ever knowing the difference between holiness and lust. I try to think instead of the churching hour, sunlight hitting the pews at 11 a.m., the solemn shame of communal repentance as we tried to think about what we had done and whether we'd be forgiven. I came to Christ early and sourdough late, long after the initial pandemic panic, after everyone had gone through the motions, exhausted the novelty, and found their way back into the fold of Wonder Bread. I wonder about the leftovers, whether they're kept in a sacred Tupperware in a fridge dedicated to Jesus's remains. If the sanctuary could be considered a morgue of sorts, and how these thoughts are probably what led me astray in the first place. I'm caught on the idea of proof as evidence, as certainty, as an early draft to catch all the mistakes, as a way to activate yeast if you are patient enough. I burn the flesh inside my forearms while retrieving my newly risen loaf from the oven. I think about Sylvia Plath, wonder if she baked bread before ending her day with her final mortal sin. I think about the wild mushroom soup I will serve with this bread, whether I'm allowed at the table now, the bottle of wine I will finish alone. Thank you.
Christina, I'm just delighted by the way that that sourdough poem marries your interest in food and your interest in exploring Christianity so beautifully. Thank you.